Intrepid viewers, hi. I'm hoping you're holding up okay after another tumultuous week. You know, immense things just keep happening. Before I start on the trade stuff, just to clarify on Epstein, thanks for all your emails. Yes, I did call it. So in the video I did on Ghislaine Maxwell, I said there quite clearly, actually, in one of my digressions, it was just after he was attacked. And I said, no, I think he did it himself, and he is not a candidate for long-term jail. I'll leave it there. And that was code. Intrepid viewers would understand what I meant by that, because I would never publicly call out someone's potential suicide, even someone as evil as Epstein, before it happened. Now it's a fait accompli, at least we think so. Could read on that, I suppose. Was it someone else? But I don't think so. So, yes. So that's all I'm going to say on that for now. Now, before we move on to, if you see a dejected figure walking past, that's one of the Maori uncles. And that's because the famous rugby team, the All Blacks, lost last night to Australia. Now, to those of you around the world who don't follow rugby, this might be meaningless. But let me tell you, in this household, this is a big deal. So, rugby is where you guys got gridiron. That's where it comes from, all right? It was rugby. You guys then made it gridiron. We do it without the padding. These guys play no helmets, no padding. Think about that. Now, normally, the very famous All Blacks are the team to beat. They're very hard to beat. And they lost. So there's all these depressed Maoris and Islanders walking around Bondi today. So I'm just warning you. Okay. Now, the All Blacks, just for a cultural exchange moment here, before every match, they do what's called the haka, spelt H-A-K-A, which is a war challenge to their opponents. They're famous for this. So if you want, YouTube the All Blacks haka. You'll get hundreds to choose from, and you'll get some idea. But the theory today is they didn't put enough into the haka. That's why they lost. Oh, my word. My word. They take their rugby very seriously. Okay. So this is actually on the Trump-China trade stuff. So I'm going to have a general look first and then see about its impact on the stock exchange. Meanwhile, the Australian dollar's fallen through the floor. This is happening more and more. This stuff has an impact around the world. You know. Okay, let's have a look, see what's happening. Trump and China, the trade war. This is a general look first. I'll do 5 cards for this. Trade. Oh, Lord have all the mercies. I'll just do one more here. This is interesting. Look, it's not good for obvious reasons, but I'll speak a bit more to that. But it has got one very good generic card sort of stopping it from having a huge crash or anything like that at the moment. In the center, it's the death card. Now, if you look closely, if you can see on this camera, this is death riding into town, literally trampling the king. Right? So, from Trump's perspective, this is not good. Here he is, the greedy king. He turns up for me as the emperor or the king of pentacles. So, it's really not good for the greedy king. staying awake at night with anxiety, no, I think staying awake at night with pharmaceutical help. Symbolically, he's staying awake at night just because he twitters about everything. I don't think he even thinks about these very serious issues at all. This is part of the problem. On top, the star, and to a certain extent, this is Trump's ongoing lucky star thing. And you'd have to get a professional astrologer to say how long that's going to last. But for now, it's going to prevent the worst damage being done by the trade war. That's easy for me to say because I'm not a soybean farmer from Idaho. It's hard because a lot of these people voted for this man. He said up front he was going to do these ridiculous things. Either they didn't think he'd do it, or they thought that's okay too, or something, but they voted against themselves famously. They also seem to support his anti-immigration stuff, even though they can't pick beans or do anything without documented and undocumented labour. The hypocrisy that is endemic in this whole dynamic now. That's why it's a big story for America, not just the trade wars. You guys are revisiting all the assumptions of the whole nation, and as a world we are having to do that. Okay, you're not alone in this. It's very big because it's America, and we are all affected by America, but it is happening everywhere else too. So let's get back to this. It's actually going to eventually be very bad, almost lethal for Trump, but not yet. The King of Cups and Justice. So what's happening here, I think this is the King of Cups here. The stock market relies on confidence, and this is the old hands of the stock market trying to steady the ship and say, don't panic. Once the panic sets in, we all know what happens. The whole thing goes to hell in a handbasket. So this is the reasonable voice. This is the sort of probably the Michael Bloombergs and one saying, just keep calm, just keep calm. Okay. But there is the question of justice. Now, to a certain extent, Trump was right in the early days. China has been ripping off the intellectual property of lots of countries, and the smarter thing would have been in the early days, go to the EU and other Western Bloc countries and say, let's tackle China about this. But no, he thought he could go it alone. He thought, I'm a failed real estate tycoon, I'm a failed casino manager, I'm a failed airline manager, I'm a failed Trump steak man, I'm going to take on China. Well, he's going to find out that's not quite how it works. In other words, he had a point in justice, but he's blown it so severely. And I don't have a lot of sympathy for big business who knew, if you read serious financial papers right from the beginning that he mentioned the T words, tariffs, they were freaked out because it's bad for global business. But they let him get away with it because they wanted their stinking fetid tax cuts. And now the national debt's so big, I don't think you can even calculate it, you know. And so the Republicans can't dribble on about responsible economics anymore. And so it's like these things have to be this bad for people to realise, you know. So let's look at how this is going to impact on the stock market. And we, dear intrepid viewers, are interested in this because that is twinned very closely with how successful or not Trump will be. He's good as long as the economy is good, and we've had this conversation before. What is the economy? The economy is much more than the stock market. Regardless of what the stock market's doing, you and I, and most people, live in the rest of the economy, which never gets talked about. Okay, Lena. Shush. All right. How's this going to impact on the stock market? We know how it's going to impact on the economy. You guys are going to have to subsidise all this, the whole agricultural sector, with your money, because you're not going to sell another soybean to China. Thanks, Trump. Beautiful. Impact on the stock market. Okay. Yes, it will affect the world. Here, that justice card is coming up again. Okay, what I think's going on here is the world. You know, the old saying, America sneezes, we all get a cold. Okay. So, yes, that's the case. It is going to affect the world. But I'm thinking again about this justice card. It has come up twice in financial readings. And so it has to be taken seriously. And I think my feel on it now is we have entered a stage of what some call peak capitalism. In other words, we've taken capitalism as far as it can go, and the ever-popular trickle-down economics is just that. People are getting a trickle, and there's not enough water in the tank because it's all going up, not down. Right. So there's an element of justice here that's going to come into play. And I think it's the young Ocasio-Cortez and dear Bernie. He was, citing this stuff 5 years ago and no doubt 35 years ago. This is about social justice. It's about economic justice. And that has been ignored. It's been ignored in America. It's been ignored in the UK. And it's sure as hell been ignored in Australia. Okay, so what's underneath this? The Queen of Cups. So this is an emotional concern. We're talking here about how it's impacting on the stock market. We know the stock market is actually an emotional illusion in a way. Confidence is everything. So while calm heads rule, it'll be okay, keeping a lid on the emotions. But I suspect the Wolf of Wall Street dynamic is coming to an end, and they're just keeping a lid on it now. America, like everywhere else, can make choices. Now, you can be blindfolded and make blind choices, like being a soybean farmer who voted for Trump, or someone in the Rust Belt who thought he was going to bring back steel manufacturing and so forth. Or it can be an informed choice of going, this is actually not fair what is happening, that money is not being spent in hospitals and schools and infrastructure. No one is governing the country. It is time for a different way of doing politics. It's not a matter of patching up. It's much bigger than that. This is a big crossroads moment. Again, talking about the stock market, there's global ripples. Then there'll be a time of retreat, and by retreat I mean sort of just pulling back from the brink of panic. See, don't forget, I'm not the only reader to say in your fall going into your winter there will be serious wobbles in the stock market. So there'll be a bit of retreat between now and then. Then further out, the Ace of Cups, almost an emotional release. So short term, meaning for argument's sake between now and Christmas, there'll be concern, there'll be impact, there will be wobbles, there'll be declines, but not the big one. So just be aware that there will be a more significant decline. I think, who am I? I'm just a humble tarot reader from the other side of the world. There will be a much bigger impact on the stock market early next year. So let's have a look at this. Oops. What's the actual question? I think we could all agree Trump's had a honeymoon with the stock market and big business. They know this is a fatal strategy. They've indulged him. But let's try and see, what will this actually be part of Trump's ultimate downfall? Will the stock market be part of what brings down Trump? Oh, Lordy, Lordy, Lord, have all the mercies. Yeah. When it hits, it'll be very fast. 8 of Wands, whoosh, and coming from all directions. Not so much all directions, but a lot at the same time is a better way of putting it. So once the financial stuff starts to happen, it's going to keep happening and will have huge impact. In his past, yes, this is the honeymoon. This is Trump's time in the sun. This is my GOP card where they went along with him and his time in the sun. They got those stupid tax cuts through, meaning there's less money to do anything. Have they built one bridge, one road, one hospital? Have they done anything? I mean, this is moving away from the GOP. Interesting. And the death card, trampling the king. Look, dearest viewers, I'm going to stop there so I can load it up. So thanks for your comments. There were lots of comments. Tulsi Gabbard. It's a funny thing about this woman, you know. I knew so little about her before I did the reading, and I thought, oh, maybe I've been too heavy-handed and all that stuff. But the more I've looked into her, thanks to links sent by you guys, she's either been trolled by Russian bots and being really misunderstood, but it's a complicated story, isn't it? I mean, she was a Bernie supporter in 2016 and then goes and meets up with Bannon and Trump in 2016. She has an unauthorized interview with Assad. She is on the voting record, I think, for supporting torture. Ooh, I'm not entirely sure. Yet has this humanitarian other side that gives a really articulate and compelling argument of why regime change isn't a good idea. And don't get me started on that, because I've been on about that for 40 years. So it's so mixed. I know less about her now than when I started. All right, I'll see you very soon. Keep in touch. Bye now.